Hello guys, welcome to another tutorial. This time we're going to do some electrical wiring, as you probably saw in the preview. So one thing I'm going to do is I'm going to implement kind of a mode switch, so we can have like the free mode, and then where you click nothing happens, or actually just whatever was happening before happens. So we just shoot stuff and we take out damage from them. And if I press tab, I'm going to switch into what I call mechanical modes, and I can see the selection of the several power generators and power recipients. And if I click in one of them, I will spawn a cable, a power cable, and then obviously I cannot click a solar panel because it doesn't make sense to transfer energy from a solar panel to another one, but I can click on a battery, and that solar panel will start producing energy to that battery. So if I click this one as well, because the other one is not going to get any sun, once the sun comes up, you're going to see this cable starting to heat up, meaning that it's transferring energy from that solar panel to this battery. This battery is just isolated here, away from the other, from any proximity power sources, and with the cables it actually charges. I can even connect to the wind power or the wave power, and the wave power will continuously generate power to the battery. So let's get started. So I had this setup already. I changed the keys because we had to change the keys to control the quadcopter the last time. I changed the keys back, so now I have ASD for controlling the character once again, and I made the quadcopter use the other set of keys next to them. I'm just going to move this guy up here so it hovers in place and provides a nice view while we're working on our cables. So let's get started. I'm going to create a folder. As usual, I'm going to name it tutorial 9. Yes, PowerCables is a name as good as any other. So let's begin with our state. So first thing I'm going to do, I am going to start by implementing a new blueprint class. I'm going to drive from let's see, player state state. So this is going to hold whatever state we are in. I'm going to call it BP_our state. Very self-explanatory. It's going to be the state of our character. And I just double check. Yeah, player state. Okay. I'm going to implement a couple of things here. I think I'm going to do this whole class from start to finish, and then we'll use these things in other places of the tutorial. Maybe I'm not going to finish on this one because there's a lot of stuff to do, but we'll see how it goes. So I'm going to create 4 variables in this class. First one is going to be the current mode, and actually to do this I need to go back and I need to create the modes. It's going to be let's see, let's put blueprint and search for enumeration. No, sorry, it's not a blueprint, it's actually a enumeration. On the blueprints menu, we're going to call it E_modes, and I'm going to open this, and inside of this class I'm going to create 2 items. First one is going to be called free. It's going to be the free mode, and the other one is going to be the mechanical mode. So the 2 modes we can be in at any given time. So it means that now I can go to the BP state and I can make this current mode be E_modes. Yes. Now I need a current selection, and for the current selection, which is what you see when I'm hovering over the solar panels and all the other items, I'm actually going to create a class or yeah, I'm going to create a base class called BP wireable. And this class is actually going to allow us to overlay that yellow shading on top of the objects. There are many ways to do that thing. You could do it with an overlay, like how do you say, an outline, like a cartoon kind of outline around the object. I find it was too much trouble to do that way, so I just did a really simple way of you know, directly specifying what kind of illumination I wanted on any object. So yeah, if you can do it in a different way, it's just a way to highlight a particular object. It's going to be a blueprint class, or is it? Yes, it's a blueprint class, and it's going to be let's say an actor. I'm going to call it BP wireable, and inside this class I have the default scene root. I'm going to create a selection box, which is going to be just a simple cube. So let's add a cube. Let's call it selection box, and we have to get a material for this. Well, actually not cube. I'm going to do it a 1 meter cube just to have the proportions correct. Right, so I need another thing here, which I will postpone for now. I'm going to focus on the material that we need for this. It needs to be kind of transparent so you can see the whatever is selected behind it. So let's go to our folder. Let's create a new folder here called materials, and inside this materials folder we are going to create a new material, call it M selection, and this material is going to be actually pretty simple. I am going to create 4 parameters here, just gonna add them on a run page. Convert to parameter. This is going to be emissive. This is going to be, I'm also converting to parameter, opacity. I'm making them parameters so I can basically create a material instance and tweak this as needed, instead of just changing the material and having to recompile all the shaders and all that. You can, it's always a good practice to allow these things to become material instances. Ambient occlusion. So this is 0. I'm going to make this one 0.9. I'm going to make the opacity 0.5 and the emissive also 0.5. Now I'll just plug this in. Emissive color, opacity. I actually need to change this to from opaque to translucent, and opacity is already plugged in. Refraction and ambient occlusion, and now the base color. I'm also going to make it perimeter. I'm going to press 4 and generate a 4 value array. Convert to parameter, call it color or base color rather, and plug this into base color. So I think that's pretty much it. Surface, yes, let's apply, save, it will compile the shader. Once it's done, so yeah, we're done. So now I am going to create a material instance. I'm just gonna right click and do create material instance. I'm gonna call it MI selection, and I think, I'm not sure I tweaked this. I probably did tweak this. Yeah, I did. So let's make the base color kind of a greenish kind of thing. Let's make ambient occlusion 0.9, emissive 0.1. No, I created those default values and ended up not using them, but that's just the way it is. That's why you do it. You make it a material instance so you can, you know, tweak it a little bit. and see what works for you. So we have the material. We can now apply the material to our cube. So mi selection. Cool. We have a kind of a transparent thing going on. And that is all very good. So event graph, I don't think, oh yeah, we want to, basically we're going to have this class be the basis for all of the selectables in the in the scene, which means that by default I don't want these to be shown. So I'm just gonna get the selection box here, and on begin play I'm gonna do set hidden in game, hidden and propagate to children, which doesn't make much sense this time, but anywho, if we end up adding more stuff to the to the hierarchy, they will all be hidden by default. Now I want one function call called set selected, and this set selected is just going to do the exact same thing. Actually, it's going to show the selection box. So set hidden in game, new hidden is well, let's see, I can put an input here and say whether I want it to be selected or not, and it is hidden if it's not selected. So not this, not boolean, and propagate to children. This means that if we set it to selected, it's going to be not hidden. If we unselected, it's going to be hidden. Nice. Don't think we have anything on our construction script, so I think we're pretty much done with this one. Oh, there's one different thing. There's the electrical plug component that I added. I kind of had the idea of adding a component where you could, you know, select inside your actor where you wanted the cable to be plugged into, kind of a plug kind of thing. Yeah, I'm gonna skip it for now. I might come back to it though. So our state, we can now add another variable called current selection, and it's going to be of type BP variable. Don't worry about this. I'm gonna basically reparent our classes in a second. I need another variable called attaching. It's going to tell me whether I am attaching something or not. I'm actually not even sure I use this variable. Let me just double check real quick. I don't think I'm using this. Yeah, I think I'm not using this one, so I'm not going to add it. Yeah, cool. So I do want something else. I want a reference to the cable that I'm currently handling, and we don't have a cable yet, so let's create a cable. Let's go back to the tutorial folder, and yeah, let's create a new blueprint class, make it an actor, and call it a BP cable. This is going to be an instance of a cable in our scene. This is where all the major work will be actually. So this cable needs to have a bunch of things, namely on the default scene root I want to add a component which is going to be a cable component, and this cable component is going to have some defaults, some sensible kind of defaults. Let me see what I added here. I think I added 110, solve iterations 1. I think I put 7 on the cable width. Yeah, to be a bit better. Generate overlap events. Everything else is fine. Attach to end. Cool. I think everything else is okay. So now, on the construction script, I don't have anything, but on the event graph, I want to do some things on event play, on begin play. And let's get the cable in here. I want to do, first of all, I want to set enable collision. This is, be advised that this is actually experimental, and so it might have some performance implications, it might have some physics, it will for sure have some physics implications. As you will see, it will make sure that the cable collides with stuff and it doesn't go you know, down the ground, for instance, with gravity and all that stuff. So yeah, it's experimental, fiddle with it, but I'm not sure how stable it is. So I want to set the gravity scale as well, the cable gravity scale. I think 1 is too much. I'm just going to do 0.2. Seemed like a reasonable value for the cables, not to drop too much. And now I am going to create a dynamic material instance. This is what's going to allow me to change the color of the cable in runtime. Create dynamic material instance, and not this one, I think. Create dynamic material instance. There are 2 functions. Make sure you select the correct one. Actually, here I need to specify a material interface. I don't have one yet for the cable. I will in a second. And then I want to create a variable called material. I want to keep a reference to this material, and this is going to be of type material instance dynamic. So material instance dynamic. And I would do a set here when we finish creating this material. And first thing I want to do is set the color on this material. So I'm going to set vector parameter, and I'm going to say color. Keep in mind we don't have this material yet, but we will have it, and I will create a parameter inside it that's going to be the color, and we're just going to dynamically change this parameter inside the material, making the cable change color. So let's get the cable here and do a set material on the cable, and we basically assign this thing to the cable. Let's just put this a bit neater here, and perfect. So the cable is black when you start, and then depending on how the power is progressing through it, it will change color. So it's a good time to go back to our materials folder and create the cable material. So let's do new material, m_cable, and this material is going to be super simple. Actually, I'm just going to press 4 and click, and I'm going to promote this to a parameter, call it color, which is the parameter we were changing in the blueprint, and that's it. All done. Super simple material. You can go as fancy as you want. You could do potentially you could use some panning with timing to make like stripes of energy glowing and moving through the cable. Like, you could go as fancy as you want with this material. I'm just gonna be lazy because I'm not a designer, and I'm gonna do the simplest thing possible. So mcable, I'm going to create a material instance, mi_cable. I'm not even going to tweak it, it's just going to be pure black. And now on the BP cable, I can just choose mi_cable as the material instance to create the material for the cable. So that's all good. Here it's not going to show yet because this is done on begin play, so you don't see it on the viewport. But if you did it on the construction script, well, not sure if you could do it on the construction script, but probably it would show correctly. Cool. So let's go. This is our event begin play. We're not going to have anything on event tick or actor begin overlap for this function, but we are going to have some functions to it. Let's start with a function called AttachTo. So the functions that I'm going to create now are all the functions necessary to attach the cable to stuff. And the way I thought about this was that you either connect the cable to an energy production component or an energy container component, if you remember the last tutorials, and also, anytime you plug to either one of these and you haven't yet plugged to the other one, it's going to plug it to the character. So the character holds one of the ends of the cable while you are still in the process of plugging two elements together. And for this I need some functions. So AttachTo, I am going to just add an input called actor. It's basically the actor that you want to attach the cable to. Real simple. I'm not going to implement this yet because I need some other functions to be able to use from this one. I want a function called attaching to tell me whether I am attaching or whether I am already completely attached to both, which means that I need to know where I'm going to attach this cable to. So I'm going to create two variables. One is going to be called power source, and it's going to be of type energy production component. And another one is going to be called consumer. I know it's poor naming and you can probably do much better, but anywho. Cool, so we have the two components where we want to connect the cable to. And this attaching function is actually going to return true or false. So it's going to return a result. So whether or not I am still in the process of attaching something. I'm just going to break this. And this is actually going to be the dependent on a branch. And if this branch condition is true, I want to say true, and if it's false, I want to say false. And what is this condition? This condition is basically, let's say, if I have a power source. So let's start looking at this. So if I have a power source is valid, and I don't have a consumer, so not is valid basically, or is valid not. So if I have a power source and I don't have a consumer, it means I am not attaching, correct? Or I am still attaching, actually. That's the better way. And oh, I just noticed something wrong in my other code here. Am I still using this function? Let's just double check. Attaching. I might not be using this function at all. Oh boy, oh boy, oh boy, oh boy, oh boy. Okay, so let's skip this function for now. Let's keep the attaching function for now. You know what? Let's just implement it, and if I'm not using it, I'm not using it. So I'm just gonna copy paste this. Basically replace these two. So doing kind of a cheating kind of thing here. Done, done. So if either of these cases is true, it means that I'm still attaching. So I only have one of the ends of the cable attached to. So I return true, otherwise I return false. Done, done. If I'm not using this function, doesn't matter. At least it's already implemented. So another function I want to have is both attached. It's going to tell me whether or not I am completely attached on both ends of the cable. And this is just going to be, I'm actually even going to copy part of this. So it's going to be this and here, but it's going to be without the not. So if this is attached and this is attached, that's the result basically. So I'm actually going to go with output result, and the result is going to be directly whatever comes out of this. So we are attached if both of them are valid references. Let's see what else. So now I want a function to attach a power source, and this attached power source is going to have two parameters. One is actor. Oh, you know what? I don't even need the actor one. I am going to just put power source in here. Power source. I'm going to have a power source. It's going to be of type energy production component. And I'm just going to check whether or not our existing power source is valid. Valid is valid. And if our power source is already valid, I am going to do return. And this return is going to be success question mark boolean, and it's not success. And if it's not valid, then I'm going to do power source set to whatever we want it to set to, and I'm going to return true. Cool. So now I need another function which is exactly the same as this one, only with the consumer, and I'm going to call it attach consumer, as one would. It's going to accept a consumer, so an energy container reference, and it's going to be the same but with the consumer instead of the power source, and with the set consumer instead of the set power source. Done, 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 and done. And now I need, well, before this crazy function that I need here, I am going to add another one first. You know what? Yeah, let's implement this one. So I need a function to, what did I do? Oh, the attach one. So I need a function to attach the character to one of the ends. I'm just gonna poorly name it attach character to one. And what this is going to do is, let's see. So I'm going to create a local variable here. I'm going to call it p1toConnect, and this is going to be an actor, if I'm not mistaken. No, actually it's going to be a scene component. And yeah, this is the place where I might change my mind later on and create that kind of plugging point on the model using a different component, but for now I'm going to use a scene component. So basically whatever is the root component of the object to plug the cable into. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to do a branch, and sorry, no, I am going to do a isValid, and what I'm going to use to test this is the power source. So is the power source valid? If the power source is valid, it means I want to connect the power source to the character. So I'm going to set the p1toConnect to be the power source, but I need to get the scene component from it. And the way I'm going to do that is I'm going to do power source get owner, and then get component by class, and from here I am going to get the, oh, I do need the electrical plug components. Yes. Okay, I need to go back. Sorry about that. Sometimes I get lost in the stuff I'm doing. Just hazards of being a developer. So I'm going to create a scene component. Can be a blueprint class. I'm going to create a scene component derived class called electrical plug component. If I can type. Yes, and I don't think this has anything on it, to be honest. It's just yeah, there's nothing on it. It's just a way for you to select a point within your actor where you want to connect the cable to. You could potentially put a mesh there, like with a socket or whatever else. So for now, it's just a placeholder. I'm going to put electrical plug component, and since it derives from scene component, you can select as the one to connect in this function. If it's not valid, it means that we want a consumer. So let's get the consumer and let's make a test for the consumer. Let's move it down here. Let's make is valid test here with the question mark. And if this guy is valid, then we want to do set the P1 to connect to be the same thing. So we're going to do get owner. And then we're going to do get component by class, electrical plug component, and this is what we're going to set. If not valid, we're not connecting anything to the character just yet. So now we need a new function to update the connection. So we know what we want to connect to each end of the cable, but we need a function to do that connection for us. And I did this function more or less in a generic way, so you can reuse it when you plug two items, one item and the character, and whatever else you want to connect the cable to. I like to make it a bit generic like that, so I'm going to call it update connection. And this update connection function is going to have 4 inputs. First input is going to be the origin component, sorry. And let me just double check here the types for this function. So yeah, all scene components basically. Then it's going to have another one called origin socket name. This allows us to, it's going to be a name. This allows us to specify in a given mesh the socket where we want to connect the cable to. And it's going to be handy for the character, so you can, connect to its hand and it keeps moving and the cable moves with him. So it's actually pretty neat. So target socket name, soccer name, yes, sure. Name, yes, cool. And so going back to the attach character, what we want to do here in both of these cases where we already know what we want to connect to the character, we are just going to get the player character on the index 0 and get the mesh. And now we want to call the update connection with the mesh being the origin component. So we're going to plug these two. We already know we want to connect the character to it. And we're just going to connect the P1 to connect here as the target component. And we want to specify that on our character, we want to connect this to the right hand socket as the socket name. Which means we need to take our character and create a socket for it on its hand. So let's go to blueprints, third person character, get mesh, open the mannequin, open the skeleton for the mannequin, and give me a second to see on my reference project where exactly I created the socket. I think it was on the middle hand right, I think, here. So let's create a add socket here. Beneath the thumb. No, actually, I think I created it. Let me just remove this. I think I created it on the middle 02R. No. Okay, it doesn't really matter much where you put it. It's just a matter of, you know, making it look better or worse. I'm going to put it here on the middle 01R, right hand socket. Right hand socket. Cool. So save, close means our mannequin now has a socket for us to connect that to. Close the VP, the third person character, and yeah, update connection should be just fine. So a lot of work still to do. Let's go with the function now. Let's go with the function. Yeah, this is a simple one. Let's call attach both. It's just going to attach the source to the target, to the consumer, I'm sorry. So we're just going to get the power source in here, get the consumer in here. For this one, get the owner. Let's copy paste this, get the owner for the consumer as well. And now, yeah, I'm super lazy today. Get component by class, duplicate this here. So get the electrical plug component, get the electrical plug component, and let's call update connection. So we're just connecting the origin component to the target component. Socket names don't really matter, and later on we will come back to this function, but not just now. Now let's implement the update connection function. This is the trickiest one. I had a rough time getting this to work properly, but finally I managed to. And so I'm going to call a function called AttachTo component. I am going to connect the origin component as the parent. The socket name is going to be the origin socket name. And I want to put the location rule as snap to target, on a snap to target. And now after this, I want to call, I'm going to get the cable, and I'm going to call set attach end to. We're going to set up the end attachment of the cable, and it's going to go to, let's get target component in here, add the reroute node, get owner for this guy, and this is the actor that we're going to attach to the end of the cable. The component property where we want to attach it to is going to be the electrical plug component, and the socket name is going to be wherever we pass here. I don't think we ever pass anything to this one, but doesn't really matter, at least for completion. If you want to connect stuff between two, say, what do you call them? Not static meshes, skeleton meshes. You could potentially do snapping on both. What else? So now I need to know the world location of both components. That's important. Both this and this. And I want to call on the cable another method, which is kind of a strange thing, but you need to do it, otherwise the reference or the position where it snaps to, it's not going to be correct. You need to do set end location 0 to make sure that you zero out the relative location of the cable. Don't ask me why, but it took me a while to find that out. So I'm going to do a difference between these two world locations. I'm going to get a length on that, so I know the distance, and I'm going to use that to set the cable length. So it becomes neater and not like strangely deformed or anything like that. And after this, I also want to do set cable width, because I noticed that sometimes it kind of forgets the defaults I gave it. So I'm just going to do 7 and force it to be of a certain width. You could put these in variables, you know, I'm just being lazy and not doing it. So yeah, this should be the basis for it to work now. But now we need to do some more stuff. Namely, we need to go to our state and we want to implement some more stuff here. Nothing on the event graph, but I do want... Oh, I can now add a reference here to the current cable, because we already have the class to support it. It's going to be a BP cable, and that's cool. And now I want some functions in here as well. Namely, I want a switch to next state. This is going to be the function that is going to switch our state from free to mechanical and vice versa. It's just going to be really simple. I'm going to get the current modes. I want to do a switch on E modes here. And if it's free, I want to set the current modes. And I'm actually going to copy paste this. This is probably not the best way to do it. You could, you know, add this to an array, cycle it properly. I'm just going to be really lazy because I only have 2, and do a switch and the set directly. But you should probably put it in an array. That's the correct way to do it, to become dynamic and future-proof. So functions, I want to add a new function called select. This select function is going to take in an actor. Oh. So yeah. And first thing I want to do is I want to call another function that I still don't have, but I'm going to create now, called clear current selection. And this function takes no arguments, but does current selection get is valid. And if current selection is valid, we do let's see, we do on the current selection, we do set selected, which is a function we already implemented. And otherwise, so we do set selected without the selected being selected, so we are actually unselecting it, so hiding it from the game. And now I want to do a set current selection to empty in both cases. So I'm just clearing up the current selection. So getting rid of this function, I can now call it here. So first thing I do, I clear the current selection. Now I am going to try to cast this guy to BP wireable. BP wireable. And if I do succeed to cast this guy to BP wireable, means I have either a power source or a power container being selected. So if I cannot cast it, means I just return. If I can cast it, I'm going to set the current selection to, I'm going to set the current selection to this BP wireable. And I am going to call set selected on it. And I'm going to return. So if it is a BP wireable, I select this guy, or I show it in game basically. And I need one last function called AttachCable, which is going to be kind of a big function. I should probably split it up as well, but you know, just doing a proof of concept here, so I won't really bother. So it's going to have an input called an actor of type actor. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to check if it's valid or not. And if it is valid, I am going to branch. And I am going to branch on the current cable is valid, this. So if the current cable is valid, means I want to attach it to something, namely the actor that is coming in from this parameter. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do current cable AttachTo. Let me just move it out here. AttachTo this guy, right? And then I want to check, am I attached to both ends already or not? So both attached. I'm going to actually convert this to, can I do it? Oh, I forgot. So let me just convert this to a pure function, because I don't really change anything on it. So it can become pure, which means that it becomes like really neat like this. Doesn't have doesn't need to go through this the normal flow of things. So I'm just going to do a branch here, and if I am attached on both ends, means I don't need to keep a reference on my current cable anymore, and I can just, you know, set it to nothing. So we can start over and spawn a different cable and so on and so forth. So I know I'm gonna need a reference to this here. So I'm just gonna, you know, create already a reroute node here, because I already know I'm gonna need it. So actor is valid, but current cable is not. Means that I need to spawn a new cable. But first I'm going to check if the current selection is valid or not. So I'm going to get the current selection, do a is valid on it, and if the current selection is valid, then we can work. And this work is going to be spawn actor from class. What class? PP cable. I'm going to spawn a new cable and take this value, do a set current cable, and AttachTo. To what? To the actor that we passed in. That's why I needed the reference there to this. And I want to spawn this cable actually on the hand of the player. So I'm going to do get player character, if I can. I'm going to get the mesh, and I'm going to do get socket transform. And what's the socket name? You guessed it, right hand socket. And this is the transform where I want to spawn the cable to. Cool. Okay, so I think we're done in terms of functions for this, for our state. We do need to do some things. You know, let me revisit our cable, because I think we didn't, not sure we implemented all of the functions. Not sure, well, we didn't implement the AttachTo, and that one is important. So the AttachTo is going to be get component by class on the actor that we want to attach. I'm just going to duplicate this, and so this one is going to try to find an energy production component inside of our actor. This is going to try to find an energy container inside of our actor. But I can't speak today. So I'm going to do is valid on the first one. So if what we are trying to attach is actually an energy production or has an energy production inside, we are going to call attach power source, right? And the actor that we want to attach is, oh, I'm sorry, we don't need the actor actually, we need the components. So this is the power source that we want to attach. And otherwise, if it's not this, then we check if is valid. If the consumer is valid, and if the consumer is valid, then we want to do attach consumer, and the consumer is going to be wherever comes from here. Cool. So at this point we attached something. Now I want to check if we are completely attached. So in both cases I want to go here and I want to see are they both attached. If they are both attached, we could do attach both. And if they're not both attached, we do attach character to one. See how this gets reused, all those functions. And so if we did attach both, we want to do something else later, which is actually connect the receivers and all that to our power supplies and power containers. But for now, let's go with the rest. So if we run it now, we don't see anything because we don't have anything to do. We're still doing the fuzbar or something Skyrim kind of thing. So we need to go to our world settings. No, sorry, not world settings. I need to go to our, oh yeah, I'm going to create a new game mode. Do I need a game mode? No, I don't need a game mode. What I do need is some way to see what kind of state we are in. So I'm going to create a widget blueprint. If I can type widget blue user widget. Let's just do user interface widget blueprint WBP mode, so we can see which mode we are in. And this is going to be really simple. We have a canvas panel. I am just going to set this to, let's see, yeah, I'm just going to add a text here. Text, I am going to call this guy current mode text. Do a center anchor. You know what? No, I want to do a top left anchor, and I want to do 20, 20, and yeah, 150, 140. Yeah, I don't want to. Yeah, you know what? Let's just type current mode free, and I want to bind this. So I'm going to create a binding to get the current mode. This binding, let me see if I can graph. The get current modes is going to be fairly simple. I'm going to do get player controller 0, and I do get player state. I cast it to BP hour state because I already know that it's going to be of this type. I haven't changed it yet, but I will. And from here I want to do current mode, get current mode, and I want to add an append node here where I'm going to say current mode, and then I plug in the current mode here. And this is what I return as my text, basically. Could be better, but it works. After this, I also want to show the current selection. So I am going to just duplicate this thing, where I am going to call it current selection, as you should. Top left, 20, 60, current selection, none. And I'm going to add a new binding, and this binding is going to be slightly more complicated, but more or less the same. So let's unplug this thing here. Let's get the player controller. Get the player state. From the player state we can do a cast to BPR state, and as BPR state we get the current mode. And now I am going to do a equals to mechanical, and I'm going to take this to do a branch. Do a branch here. If it's mechanical, only if it's mechanical I want to do this, otherwise I just realized, yeah, I don't really show it actually if it's not mechanical. Yeah, that doesn't really matter what I send back here if we're not in mechanical mode, because I completely hide the UI. I just forgot. So let's take this, get the current selection from our state, and we check if it's valid. True. If it is valid, we are going to do, I'm going to get the display name and do an append again, where I'm going to say current selection, and I attach this here. I'm going to return this guy, right? So if it's valid, I'm going to say whatever I'm selecting. If it's not valid, then I will just say current selection none. Cool. So we have a kind of a simple UI to show what we have selected and in which mode we are right now. So I think we can go to our third person character now, and we need to do some things here in the third person character if I'm not mistaken. Let me quickly check. So we need an action to change state. I also need to set up the viewport, so that widget. So let's start with that. I'm just gonna do a begin play. If it's not set up yet, it's not. So begin play. I'm going to create a widget. It's going to be a WPP mode widget, and I'm going to add it to the viewport. And I set the owning player to get player controller. That's it. So if I run now, I should have the UI. Oh no, because I haven't switched modes yet. It only shows if I switch modes. So I need to, no, actually it should change. Okay, I should be seeing it. Let me check why not. WPP mode on begin play, get player controller. Am I doing something wrong here? So, oh, I need to do some things on event tick as well, and some things on shoot, on the shoot action. Okay, so let's look at our part here where we do the shooting. So we have the take damage part here. I don't really want this. I'm doing way too much in this thing here. I'm doing a fire. I'm not sure I want to do all of these things. Yeah. So remove health. I just realized I have this a little bit different from my reference project. That's why I'm taking so long to think about this. Should be doing here. Okay. I am writing this, and I think I'm writing whether I shoot something. Yeah. I don't really care about that. I don't really care about the shockwave part too. Okay, so let me just move this here, and I'm going to do a branch, and I'm going to create a function first called mechanical mode. Mechanical mode. It's just going to tell me whether I'm in mechanical mode or not. It's going to be an output result of type boolean, and this is just going to get the player state, cast it to BP our state. I'm actually going to make this a pure cast because I don't need to do it like that. So I'm getting the current mode here and doing equals mechanical, and this is actually the result. So I am in mechanical mode if the player state says so. Means that now I can actually branch here, and let's move here, branch, and only if I'm not in mechanical mode I'm going to shoot stuff. Okay, so if I am in mechanical mode I am not going to shoot anything. I am, however, going to do something else. I am going to do I'm going to get player state, cast it to BPR state, and if we do have a cast, I am going to do AttachCable, and I'm going to attach it against a variable that I haven't created yet, which is going to be called current hit, and this current hit is of type actor. So I'm just going to try and attach a new cable or an existing cable to whatever hit I am currently hitting, basically. Okay, that looks fine. So now I need to go back down here to the begin play, and let's see, I still need to figure out why the interface is not showing, but I can do something else. I can do the switch mode part first. I am going to go to the project settings. I need a new key, so I'm gonna add an action mapping called switch mode. It's gonna be with the tab key. That way I can do switch mode event down here, and you know, I'm just gonna get the, where was it, the player state casting back down here as well, and if this is pressed I want to, you know, it could be a pure cast. So if this is pressed I am going to do switch to next state, which means I could go Yeah, I can press it, but I don't see it, so I have no idea. Oh, we have errors. We have an error here. Let's go inside. Do I have a default mode? Oh, I really need to figure out what that error was. So access none, trying to read property, dynamic cast as RVP state, third person character, switch to next state. So okay, I cannot cast on the player state yet. Sure, of course. So I need to go here. Let's see, blueprints, no. World settings, yeah, game mode override. Yeah, let me just check really quick. Yeah, I think I created a specific game mode. I did, but yeah, I think I created this third-person game mode. We could use this one, third-person game mode. That is here, and we're just going to set the player state to be BP our state. And now we have the current mode free. I press tab. I am in mechanical mode, and I don't see anything because I'm not tracing yet for the object, but I can switch between the mechanical mode and the free mode. So that part is fine. Now I do need something on the third person character yet. I think I'm going to get rid of the fireball thing, or yes. Okay, so we do need something on the event tick. I don't think I have an event tick yet here. I do not. Yeah, so let's get some space in here. Let's do, yeah, just so I have the same project as the other one. So let's do event tick here. And on event tick, we need to check for a hit all the time to see if we are actually hitting something that could be a selection. So I'm gonna get the player state here. And I'm going to cast to BPR state. I could probably just keep a reference of the state on begin play and not having to cast this all the time, but I'm just being lazy now. So I need a new function here called trace. This trace function is going to try to find a hit for us. And basically what I want to do here is align trace by channel, right? Trace channel will be camera. Let's do debug time for duration so we can see what we're tracing. Ignore self, colors all good, and I am going to make this function return an actor if it hits something, and a hit question mark to tell me whether I have hit something or not. And I'm just gonna do like sorry, out hit. I need to break this hit here, yes, and I need to return the out hit actor and hit the return value. Cool. So now how do I want to make this hit? I want to make it you know, for one, let's adjust the camera boom a little bit. I think the boom or the camera, I have to see. Yeah, I want to put the boom back in 0 here, but I want the camera slightly offset from the character. So let's make it maybe this and this and this, so we get a different perspective when we play. Yeah, so we can clearly see where we are tracing now. It's much better. And now I want to trace. Let's see how I want to do this trace. I want to get the actor location. I'm going to break this into the three variables that compose the location. I want to make a vector as well, because I need to do some changes on these, namely on the Z coordinates. These are going to be the same, X and Y. I want to get the base height, and I want to add this to the Z component, or Z, and make a vector, and this is going to be the start of my trace, and the end of my trace is going to be the camera get forward vector times a slightly large float, let's say 10,000 will work, and multiply, add this to the start vector, and this is going to be the end trace. So I'm going to be constantly tracing, or I should, but I'm not. Duration, ignore self, 10,000, get forward vector on the camera, base height plus. I am for sure missing something here. Oh yeah, I'm missing using this function. So let's go back to the event graph. We need to cast, now we trace, and if we get a hit, so we branch, we do set current hit, and actually I'm going to duplicate this because I'm also going to set it when we don't have a hit. Just gonna leave it blank, and we set it to wherever we hit, if we did hit something, and then we call select on the state. So I'm gonna put a reroute node here and select the function. So in the first case where I did have a hit, I am going to select the hit actor. Otherwise, I am going to call clear current selection. And this is done. So cool. Okay, so now I am constantly tracing, and I don't really like this because there's way too many lines here. I might have made a mistake here. Let's see, for the duration, oh, draw time, I need to put this 0 because I don't want this to be visible for 5 seconds at all. Yeah, okay, so now we see exactly where it is looking, what it's trying to trace, where it's hitting, and all of that. Cool. So I think I'm going to stop now. I'm going to make part 2 maybe tomorrow, because this is going on for a long time now. We now have the ability to switch between, oh, and yeah, if I am in free mode and I shoot, I'm still shooting stuff. If I change to mechanical, you can see I'm no longer shooting anything. There's no hits, no nothing. So we are in the correct game mode. All the underlying work for the cables is practically done. It's just a matter of actually using it and then connecting it to the connecting the power sources to the containers, and it should be fine. I think I will probably be done in maybe 20 minutes, maybe less, on the next tutorial. But yeah, this is going already for a while, so I am going to stop just so I don't bother you too much if I didn't already. So until tomorrow, maybe, I hope. See you then. Thanks.